Welcome to The Explainer. I am so glad you're here today because we're going to rethink a pretty common assumption. Whenever you hear the word chemistry, what's the first thing that pops into your head? You're probably picturing this sterile laboratory, scientists running around in bright white coats, safety goggles strapped on, and bubbling beakers everywhere, right? Well, actually, some of the absolute coolest chemistry in the world isn't happening in some top-secret hidden lab. It's happening right now, literally this very second, right inside your kitchen. It's happening when you bake a cake, when you scrub down your countertops, or even when you just bite into a crisp apple. So today, we are diving into the divine chemistry of household acids and bases, and I promise you, it's going to completely change the way you look at your own home.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll start with chemistry in your home, then meet acids and bases, check out how we use them, talk about playing it safe with pH, and finally, wrap things up with the power of words.
All right, starting things off with Section 1, Chemistry in your home.
Acids and bases are literally everywhere. We interact with them every single day without even thinking about it. They're sitting right there on your bathroom shelves, they're hiding out in your garden soil, and they're constantly at work inside your own body, just keeping you alive and healthy. And that brings us to a really beautiful perspective on why we even bother studying all this. There's this verse from 1 Corinthians 10:31 that says, "So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God." See, everyday science isn't just a boring list of random facts you have to memorize for a test. It's actually this profound way we can care for ourselves and the physical world that's been entrusted to us. When we understand how our environment works, even all the way down to the chemical level, we can be much better stewards of our health and our homes.
Moving right along to Section 2, Meet Acids and Bases. Let's unmask some of these everyday chemicals.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the massive contrast in how we interact with these everyday chemicals. Think about it. A lot of the foods we absolutely love to eat are acidic. We're talking citrus fruits, vinegar, that tangy yogurt you grab for breakfast. They all owe that signature tart, zippy flavor to mild acids. But when it is time to scrub the floors or do the laundry, we completely switch gears. We reach for basic or alkaline substances. Ammonia, bleach, baking soda mixed into water. Those are all basic cleaners. So it's pretty wild. We are constantly eating mild acids, but we heavily rely on basic solutions to keep our living spaces clean and sanitized.
All right, Section 3, How we use them. Time for some everyday science hacks.
Let's walk through a few brilliant, real-world examples of how we actually use these chemicals. First up, vinegar. Since it's a mild acid, it is just absolutely fantastic at dissolving tough mineral deposits. If you've got a cloudy shower head covered in hard water stains, vinegar will break down those minerals like it's nothing. Second, let's talk about baking. Ever wonder how bread gets so perfectly fluffy? Well, baking soda is a base. When you mix it into your dough, it reacts with the acidic ingredients in your recipe. And that chemical reaction? It releases carbon dioxide gas, creating all those tiny little bubbles that make the bread rise up. Finally, think about slicing an apple. You leave it on the kitchen counter for a few minutes, and boom, it turns brown. But if you squeeze a little acidic lemon juice over the top, it acts like this invisible chemical shield, keeping that apple fresh and super crisp. So what's happening there? Well, it all comes down to fighting a process called oxidation. Oxidation is just a chemical reaction that causes cut fruits to turn brown really quickly the second they're exposed to oxygen in the air. Believe it or not, it's the exact same process that causes metal to rust. But when you add the acid from the lemon juice, it actually lowers the pH on the surface of the apple, and that completely deactivates the specific enzyme causing the browning. So you are literally using an acid as a food preservative to just stop a chemical reaction dead in its tracks. I mean, how cool is that? Which brings us to Section 4, Playing it safe with pH, because knowing your chemicals is absolutely crucial. So while mild acids like lemon juice are perfectly safe to handle and eat, obviously not all household chemicals are. Knowing the chemical makeup of the stuff under your sink is completely vital for your personal safety. And to stay safe, scientists use what's called the pH scale. You can kind of think of pH as our built-in warning system. It's simply a numbered scale that tells us exactly how acidic or how basic a specific substance is. By understanding exactly where a product falls on this scale, we can instantly decide, hey, is this safe to touch with my bare hands, or is it strong enough that I really need some protective gear?
So, let me challenge you real quick with a direct question based on what we've covered so far. Think about your normal weekend chores around the house. Why should you always wear gloves when you're using a cleaner like bleach? I'll just give you a second to think about the chemistry behind that.
Okay, if you guessed that it has everything to do with how basic it is, you totally nailed it. Bleach sits super high up on the basic side of the pH scale. It's a highly basic chemical, which means it can cause severe irritation or even nasty chemical burns to your skin if you're careless with it. Knowing the pH tells us immediately that we absolutely need gloves and maybe even some safety goggles. And honestly, understanding this stuff doesn't just prevent painful accidents. It ensures you're using the right amount of product to actually get the job done, which, at the end of the day, saves you money too. Knowledge is quite literally your shield here.
And that leads us perfectly into Section 5, the power of words. Let's see how this science mirrors the soul.
So the crucial point here is the parallel. Think about our household chemicals. As we've seen, they can be incredibly powerful for good. We use them for baking bread, cleaning our homes, preserving our food. But when they're mishandled, they can be incredibly dangerous. Well, our words and our actions, they work exactly the same way. Just like acids and bases, your words have a pH level. Used with care, they can build people up, encourage them, and literally bring life to a situation. But if they're unleashed carelessly, they can cause some deep, lasting harm. We really have to handle our influence with the exact same level of care and respect we'd give to a highly reactive chemical.
And that brings us to a core philosophy, especially for everyone following the Hero Smart Academy Godly Learners series. Education without morality will hurt. Period. Seriously, think about it. What is the point of knowing all the science in the world? What's the point of being incredibly smart and supposedly super educated if you just keep making bad choices that end up hurting yourself and the people around you? True education doesn't just stuff your head full of facts. It absolutely has to shape your heart, so you actually use those facts for good.
But there's a really profound reward for pairing your education with a solid moral foundation. Romans 8:6-7 promises peace of mind to everyone who keeps their mind spiritual. That is the ultimate goal here. When you engage with your education through a lens of spiritual groundedness, you aren't just gaining knowledge, you're gaining peace. You understand how the world works on a physical level, sure, but you also understand your rightful, positive place within it.
So as we wrap things up, I want to leave you with one final, deeply important question to carry with you long after this explainer is over. You now know the science of how things react. You know the power you hold. So, will you use your knowledge and your words to build up the people around you or to burn? The chemistry really is in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep exploring, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.